Hi, boys and girls. It's Mrs. Wilsey here. We're on to lesson 5, the life cycle of trees. Remember, in the previous lesson, we talked about the life cycle of flowering plants. Trees are similar in a way. Some trees are, some trees aren't. And you see in this picture a variety of different trees. We're also going to take a look at a chart that I created about seasons. And for us, we're in the northern hemisphere, so it's our northern seasons chart, and I will attach this and have it filled out before it's time to have our test. And so in the spring where we are, spring equinox is March 21st. We have roughly the same daylight as dark hours. In the summer, we have the summer solstice, June 21st, more daylight hours than dark hours. It stays lighter later. In the fall, we have about the same amount of daylight and dark hours. And in the winter, we have fewer daylight hours and it gets darker. And if you notice, most of these dates happen on the 21st, and it's approximately, sometimes some years it's a little bit different. In the spring, we know we're warming up, like right now. In the summer, it gets hotter, and then it cools down in the autumn and the fall. In the winter, it's colder than everything else. And so for here, the plants, this is what we talked about a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit more in this next lesson. In the spring, trees grow new leaves. In the summer, they grow and absorb more sunlight. In the fall, the leaves change color and begin to fall. And in the winter, no leaves. Trees live off the energy in the roots. But this is just for one kind of tree. There's another kind of tree we're going to talk about that doesn't lose its leaves in the wintertime. All right. So here we go. There are certain things on Earth that make life possible. We need water to live, just as we need air, the air that we breathe. Have you ever thought about where the air that you breathe comes from? The air that you breathe is dependent on or supported by the existence of trees. Without trees, it would be almost impossible for humans to survive on Earth. There are thousands of different kinds of trees in the world. There are towering sequoia trees and tiny dwarf willows. There are noble oak trees and scented pines. They all help to make life possible on this planet. Trees provide us with many things and perform many tasks that you might not be aware of. For example, trees provide us with oxygen to breathe. Trees also take in carbon dioxide through their leaves. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, meaning that if too much of it builds up in the Earth's atmosphere, our planet will heat up. Therefore, trees help to manage the Earth's climate and keep it livable for us. So, the O2, the little blue dots, are oxygen going out of the tree, and it goes out of the tree because it takes in CO2, which is carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide goes in, the tree uses it, and spurts out oxygen. I don't say spurt, that's probably not the best word, but it produces oxygen. But it's not like a fan that's going to blow a bunch of air in your face. It just produces it, it releases it into the air. Um, Trees' roots help to fight soil erosion and flooding by holding the soil together and absorbing water from the soil. That means that tree roots help hold the soil and ground in place. Finally, we use trees, or the wood that comes from trees, all over the world for all kinds of things. Can you think of 3 things that the wood from trees is used for? Think about it, boys and girls. What are 3 things that the wood from trees would be used for? That's actually going to be a comprehension question. That's going to be something you can think about and we can talk about later. Let's review the parts of a tree. Now, you've learned this before, I think, in previous grades. Do you remember what the main stem of a tree is called? The main stem of a tree is called the trunk. This is the trunk. All the branches of the tree grow out of the trunk. Tree leaves grow on the branches. The roots hold the tree in the ground. They not only hold the tree in the ground, but they also help to feed the tree too. Roots absorb water and nutrients from the ground. The water and nutrients absorb means to take in. Just like a sponge absorbs water. Or if you have a spill and you try and wipe it up with a paper towel, the paper towel absorbs the water. The water and nutrients travel up from the roots through the trunk into the leaves. Okay? Into the branches, then into the leaves. Leaves are important because they enable the tree to process food. Tree leaves produce food through photosynthesis. That's that great big word we've heard about before, just like the leaves in the flowering plants. Another important part of the tree is the outside layer called the bark. The bark protects the tree from outside forces such as heat, cold, insects, and bacteria. Bacteria are very small living things that often cause diseases. Trees follow the same life cycle as other plants. Just like a flower, a tree's life cycle begins with a seed. Tree seeds can be as large as tennis balls or as tiny as freckles. They come in different shapes and sizes too. Various shapes and sizes too. They can be flat, smooth, bumpy, long, or thin. Tree seeds have three main parts. They are the embryo or egg, the stored food inside the egg, which enables the seed to grow and change, and the seed coat, which eventually falls off. Most seeds are carried away from the parent tree that produced them. Do you remember how seeds are dispersed or spread apart? They are dispersed in various ways. They are carried by animals, people, wind, and water. Wherever they land, they rest on the soil until germination begins. Germination is when a seed begins to grow or sprout. Certain conditions are required for germination to happen. We have learned that in the temperate parts of the world, the seasons affect the life cycle of living things, especially plants. Therefore, when there's enough warmth and direct sunlight as well as water from rain, the seed splits open and germination begins. This usually occurs in spring when there's sufficient warmth and rain. Once germination begins, the seed produces roots that search for groundwater. The word groundwater is a compound word made of the word ground and the word water. What do you think it means? Did you guess water that's in the ground? Good job. As they find water, the roots hold fast in the ground and the stem grows up toward the sunlight. Tiny seed leaves open and use the sun and water to make food. The seed has become a seedling or young plant. Seedlings need just the right amount of water, warmth, and sunshine to grow. With the right conditions, seedlings develop into young trees with roots, a trunk, branches, and leaves. Young trees are called saplings. Tree saplings are much smaller than mature trees. Usually, trees are called saplings when they're between 3 and 15 years of age. A tree sapling's bark is smooth and its trunk is flexible, meaning it can bend more easily than a mature tree can. When something is flexible, that means it can bend or move easily. Once a tree is considered mature, it may flower and produce fruits, nuts, or cones. Some trees simply produce seeds. There are two different types of seeds. I'm sorry, trees. Try that again. There are two different types of trees. Deciduous, that's the one on the left, trees, and deciduous trees, and then evergreen. We also call these pine trees. Deciduous trees tend to have wide, flat leaves. They shed their leaves, whereas evergreen tree leaves tend to be narrow and thin like needles. During the cold winter months, deciduous trees shed their leaves and become inactive for the winter, much like hibernating animals do during the wintertime. In fact, this is what keeps them alive during the coldest part of the year. To prepare for this time of rest, deciduous trees stop using their leaves to make food, and instead they shed these leaves. Then, during the cold winter months, they save their energy until spring returns. In the spring, they will use their energy to produce new leaves. Evergreen trees, the ones on the right, on the other hand, shed and reproduce their leaves throughout the year. So there are green leaves on evergreen trees all year long. The cones of evergreen trees are its flowers. Unlike deciduous trees, evergreen trees do not shed all of their leaves at the end of fall. Instead, they use their leaves to make food all winter. How long does it take for a tree to grow to its full size? Well, this depends on a number of things. Different kinds of trees grow at different speeds. In tropical parts of the world where there is a consistent, intense sunshine and rainfall, a tree can grow to maturity or become an adult in 30 years. In colder regions of the world, it can take 100 years or more. The length of a tree's lifespan depends on many things. It will always depend on the tree having enough sunshine and water, but other factors can affect its growth and lifespan too. The condition of the soil in which the tree is growing and diseases such as insect infestations and bacteria can alter the natural lifespan of a tree. An infestation occurs when a large number of something harmful enters an area. Okay, becomes infested, but it has to have a large number, not just one or two. Accidents such as fires and natural disasters such as hurricanes and floods can have an effect too. Also, people cut down trees so that they can be used to make a variety of products. When a tree lives for a long time and then dies, it is not totally the end of its that's not totally the end of its journey. Decomposers like earthworms, bacteria, and fungi take over the dead tree. Fungi is the plural word for the word fungus. And they're living things such as molds, mushrooms, and yeasts that live on dead or decaying things. Through the decomposition process, they help to slowly break down the tree into a rich nutrient that feeds the soil, enables new trees to grow. Um, and so it's a life cycle. So they decompose. So the life cycle of and there you have it. Here's the life cycle of an apple tree. Okay. So it starts, think about the apples that we eat generally in the fall, they have seeds in them. Um, in the wild, eventually, apples will drop to the ground. Maybe a deer will eat them. And if a deer or another animal eats them, the seeds will come out in their poo. And then in the spring, it'll grow. And as it gets sunlight and water, it will become a great big tree. And eventually it will, in the spring, it will flower. I love apple trees that flower in the spring. Cherry trees are also beautiful too. And eventually it will produce fruit. And then the fruit will drop to the ground. And here the cycle goes all over again. Okay. And there you have it, the life cycle of a tree.